wadr.org. WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Accra, 1 o'clock in Abuja and Porto Novo. Good afternoon and welcome to the second edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Top of the stories.
Anybody who comes out and say that there's no Christian genocide, there's no Christian persecution, is not fair to the Christians of northern Nigeria.
How they concluded their report by saying there is a genocide is quite intriguing.
Religious leaders and government officials in Nigeria divided over claim of Christian persecution as U.S. Congress set November 24 hearing. Ghana's newly sworn-in Chief Justice Bafo Boni pledges to uphold rule of law and judicial independence. Also, Liberian women and girls petition United Nations office over government delay in prosecuting rape cases.
If the government of Liberia will not protect its own children, the United Nations must help us start an independent investigation into why rape cases are not being prosecuted.
Sierra Leone's President Mada Bio calls on world powers to support African-led peace initiative as he chairs United Nations Security Council for November. Details of these stories and more coming up in the next 30 minutes. Please be mindful.
Christopher Aticho with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners within the sub-region and beyond. Newslink begins in Nigeria as the United States Congress is set to hear allegations of Christian persecution just days after President Donald Trump redesignated the country as one of a particular concern. The hearing is scheduled for Thursday, November 20, 2025 and will be conducted by the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa. This decision has triggered strong reactions in Nigeria, with religious leaders and government officials sharply divided over these claims. WADR's Abuja correspondent Usma Umar reports.
The session, to be chaired by Republican lawmaker Chris Smith, follows President Donald Trump's decision to again list Nigeria as a country of particular concern, a designation reserved for nations accused of severe violations of religious freedom. Congressman Smith, a long-time advocate on the issue, has backed resolutions naming two pastoralist groups, the Miete Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria and Miete Allah Kautal Hori, as entities allegedly involved in attacks on Christian communities. The comments have sparked fresh debate in Nigeria. The chairman of the northern chapter of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Reverend Joseph Haya, insists that the allegations reflect lived realities across the north.
Can I consider what has been happening as genocide against Christians? And my straightforward answer is yes. We have different groups and different people who view this differently. So anytime you listen to this conversation, you have this thing going. But as I've said in many fora, that the truth about it is that anybody who comes out and say that there's no Christian genocide, there's no Christian persecution, is not fair to the Christians of northern Nigeria, neither is it fair to the victims and their families.
However, government officials strongly disagree, dismissing the U.S. reports as misinformed and unrepresentative of Nigeria's complex security situation. Daniel Boala is a spokesperson for Nigeria's president.
This journey started with the Republican lawmakers picking that soundbite from Bill Maher, who started this conversation. But they relied on two reports. The first report is from Inter-Society Civil Liberties and Human Rights, and the second report is on Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa. These two reports, in their very constituents, they indicated that there is a killing of both Christians, Muslims, and non-Christian and non-Muslims. So how they concluded, even though the raw data and the analysis of the data suggests that there is no genocide, how they concluded their report by saying there is a genocide is quite intriguing.
As the U.S. Congress prepares for Thursday's hearing, the divide between those insisting on an international spotlight and those calling for restraint remains stark. What is clear, however, is that the debate is reopening questions about Nigeria's handling of insecurity and how the world perceives it. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Let's cross over to Liberia, where the controversial rape case linking a suspended Deputy Minister for Youth Development has ignited public outrage over sexual violence in the country. Brian Magel was suspended by President Joseph Boakai following allegations that he raped a minor. Despite his suspension, the Liberian National Police, LNP, announced the need for international DNA testing before arresting the accused official, a statement many perceive as preferential treatment for high-profile individuals accused of rape. On Monday, a group described as the Liberian Women and Girls Against Rape submitted a petition to the United Nations office in Monrovia requesting international intervention. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The petition outlined several grievances, including more than 2,000 unresolved rape and sexual violence cases, missing files, and allegations of pressure on victims to remain silent. The group highlighted the case of a 14-year-old girl who was allegedly raped by suspended Deputy Minister Brian Magel, noting that while she suffers quietly, the minister continues to walk free without being arrested. Sharon Kolumolo, speaking on behalf of the group, stated that women and girls in Liberia are being sexually abused with little or no effort from the government to protect them.
We, the women and girls of Liberia, are begging for help. We see a justice system that works for powerful people but not for the poor or the weak. If the government of Liberia will not protect its own children, then the United Nations must help us start an independent investigation into why rape cases are not being prosecuted.
Meanwhile, Yei Deve Yanko, an activist for women's and girls' rights, criticizes the slow pace of investigations, lack of convictions, and apparent impunity in being endured by perpetrators with political connections. Adding to the criticism, human rights lawyer Tiawan Gongolo raises concerns about the police hindering of the Mangel case.
The allegation of the victim and the physical evidence on the victim's body are conclusive evidence, not just of probable cause, but sufficient for conviction. So I'm calling upon the police to step up a little bit and arrest Brian.
The latest petition to the United Nations office emphasizes the increasing desperation of Liberian women and girls who feel that their voices are not being heard and their safety is not being prioritized by the government. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Sierra Leone is presiding over the United Nations Security Council for November 2025. On Monday, November 17, 2025, Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio chaired a high-level session focused on the theme Threats to International Peace and Security, Conflict-Related Food Insecurity. In his speech, Maada Bio, who doubles as president of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, warned about the negative impact of violence and armed conflicts on the attainment of global peace and economic stability. His leadership of the Security Council for November emphasizes his role within the regional bloc regarding efforts to addressing threats to peace, security, and humanitarian concerns in the West African sub-region. Here is President Julius Maada Bio.
The rise of terrorism and violent extremism in the Sahel and is increasingly spilling over into coastal West African states, and that constitutes a grave threat to international peace and security. But we in the region are determined to confront this menace head-on. As current chair of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, I'm committed to strengthening regional trust and security cooperation to address our shared challenges. However, to succeed, Africa's effort must be met with robust international responsibility and partnership. Today, I call on the United Nations Security Council, the UN member states, the Secretariat and partners to support Africa-led peace initiatives with concrete action. In particular, we urge the full implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 2719, which was a landmark unanimous decision acknowledging the need for predictable financing for African peace operations. That resolution provides a framework for the UN to help fund African-led peace support operations through assessed contributions on a case-by-case basis.
And that is President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone, now President of the United Nations Security Council for November. In Guinea, the children of reggae artist Eli Kamano Astor Mason says they were reportedly kidnapped over the weekend. The incident took place at his home in Matoto district located in the upper suburb of Conakry. Kamano, who is currently in exile, alleges that the military is ordered the kidnapping or in an attempt to silence him. Human rights advocates are calling for the independent and credible investigation into the matter.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And let's focus our attention on health right here in the Senegalese capital as the One Health Secure regional workshop is underway in Dakar with the aim of better understanding the links between human, animals and environmental health in order to strengthen responses to emerging epidemics. Launched on Monday, the meeting runs until November 21 at the Care Center for the Pasteur Institute campus. The 5-day event brings together African and international scientists, specialists from several Maghreb and several countries to work to the prevention or on the prevention and surveillance of vector-borne diseases. Abdullah Hassan reports.
The workshop highlighted the importance of the One Health approach, which recognizes the interdependence of human, animal and environmental health. Ibrahima Sosé Fall is the Director General of the Pasteur Institute, Dakar.
More than 2/3 of infectious diseases are of zoonotic origin, meaning they come from animals. This highlights the importance of the One Health approach, which allows us to prevent most of these diseases, detect them early as soon as they appear in animals before they spread to humans, and also manage them in order to avoid major epidemics. As you know, today in Senegal, we are talking about 2 epidemics, Rift Valley fever and monkeypox or mpox, which fully fall within the One Health concept. Our ability to predict, prevent and detect this type of virus will enable us to improve the health of the population.
Experts also analyzed the factors contributing to the spread of diseases and identified the main challenges to be addressed. According to Ibrahima Sosé Fall, the ability to anticipate and detect these viruses is crucial for protecting populations.
With the deforestation we are seeing right now, linked to sometimes agriculture, linked to mining industry, we have a loss of biodiversity. This is also critical determinant for the emergence of arboviruses and viral hemorrhagic fever. That's why, again, we need this multisectoral approach to be able to prevent, control outbreak and pandemic.
According to the World Health Organization, WHO, 80% of the world's population is now exposed to vector-borne diseases, which are responsible for more than 700,000 deaths each year and numerous chronic conditions. This health and economic burden is particularly felt by African countries.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. Let's now focus on some political issues in Benin as the National Autonomous Electoral Commission, SENA, has confirmed the final registration of 2 pairs of candidates contesting in the 2026 presidential election. The electoral receipts were presented to the candidates' representatives at the institution's headquarters on Monday. Led by the SENA President Saka Lafia, the ceremony brought together members of the Electoral Council and several technical officials. Francis Boniface tells us more in this report.
The electoral documents were officially handed over to representatives of the candidates chosen for the 2026 presidential election. They include Romuald Wadanyi and Mariam Chabi-Talata from the Presidential Coalition, as well as Paul Oumpe and Judisael Nwanyu from the Force Kauri for an Emerging Benin FCBE. In his remarks, Saka Lafia, president of the National Independent Electoral Commission, SENA, outlined the process that led to the final validation of candidates' applications. He highlighted that several key steps, including analysis of submitted documents and verification of criminal records and review of medical reports for each candidate. Saka Lafia also mentioned that a draw will be conducted in the coming days to determine the candidates' positions on a single ballot. Additionally, the president of the National Independent Electoral Commission, SENA, noted that the commission is concurrently processing applications for the legislative elections scheduled for January 2026. He urged political parties to adhere to the Wednesday, November 19 midnight deadline, stating that no applications will be accepted after this time.
Francis Boniface with the details of a report forwarded in by our Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Sole. You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. We're also live on Facebook at WADR English Service, as well as YouTube at WADR News. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Religious leaders and government officials in Nigeria sharply divided over claims of Christian persecution as U.S. Congress set November 24 hearing. Also, Liberian women and girls petition United Nations office over government delay in prosecuting rape cases. And Sierra Leone's President Madabio calls on world powers to support African-led peace initiative as he chairs United Nations Security Council for November. Still ahead in the news.
I envision a Ghana where justice is not delayed or denied.
And that's Ghana's newly sworn-in Chief Justice Bafo Boni pledging to uphold rule of law and judicial independence. We do have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let me take you to Ghana, where President John Dramani Mahama has sworn into office Justice Paul Bafo Boni as the new Chief Justice of the country. His appointment marks a crucial step in restoring leadership in the judiciary following last week's parliamentary confirmation and the recent removal of his predecessor, Justice Gertrude Tokonu. Speaking at a swearing-in, the new Chief Justice pledged to, among others, uphold the rule of law and oversee systems where justice is not delayed nor denied. Now they did a report from Accra.
You say after me,
I, Paul Bafo Boni,
do in the name of the Almighty God swear.
Do in the name of the Almighty God swear.
At a ceremony held at the Jubilee House and graced by high-ranking dignitaries including the Vice Presidents, members of the Council of State, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, the leadership of Parliament, Supreme Court justices, and representatives of the Ghana Bar Association, President Mahama commended Justice Paul Bafo Boni for his vast experience and unwavering commitment to the rule of law. He urged the new Chief Justice to safeguard judicial independence and promote swift delivery of justice.
The judiciary in particular must be above reproach. One single act of corruption by a judicial officer can undermine years of hard work and erode public confidence in the entire system. My Lord Chief Justice, one of your most urgent tasks is to strengthen integrity within the judiciary, and this includes firm but fair disciplinary standards for judges and staff.
Accepting the mantle of leadership, the newly sworn-in Chief Justice Paul Bafo Boni outlined his vision for the judiciary that upholds the rule of law, respects court decisions irrespective of public opinion, and advances reforms to enhance transparency and accessibility.
I envision a Ghana where justice is not delayed or denied, where the cost, distance, and complexity of going to court are no longer barriers to fairness. I envision judges who are independent, yet humble, fearless, yet fair, learned, yet compassionate.
Justice Paul Bafo Boni's appointment marks a pivotal moment for Ghana's judiciary, restoring full leadership to the institution following his parliamentary confirmation last week and the recent removal of his predecessor, Justice Gertrude Basaki Tokonu. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
Let me take you to the Central Sahel region, precisely Niger, where authorities have suspended the activities of several NGOs and international organizations. They cite national priorities, regulatory compliance, and security concerns as reasons for the suspension. This decision was announced through an official communication issued by the Ministry of Interior and sent to the regional governors. While the suspension does not indicate a specific number, the decision affects a variety of groups, including humanitarian NGOs.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
For today's press review, let's join our Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker for the top stories.
This edition of Press Review from Liberia features 3 local dailies. And we begin with the Independent newspaper, Liberia's most investigative newspaper. And it goes with these stories. Fonati Kofa, 14 others plead not guilty as a jury selection begins today in capital Asson case. Opposition CDC describes U.S. $1.2 billion draft budget as serious fiscal risk, and Ministry of Internal Affairs to host a 3-day Chiefs Summit. Our next stop is the Heritage newspaper, volume 29, number 35832, and these are stories making the headlines. Officials replaced before probe on Mbwakai. They want America to bribe over HPS deal? Is a question being asked by the Heritage newspaper. And in photo is House Speaker Richard Tekun and Senate Pro Tem Nyombli Kangalars. Still on the Heritage, National Oil Company of Liberia, NOCA, seals NNT alliance with Morocco. And our last stop is Front Page Africa newspaper, volume 18, number 218. And these are stories making the headlines. Traffic lights cripple movement in Monrovia. Pinsville, police at rising danger as authorities announce replacements and CCTV rollout. And Liberian women petition United Nations over rising sexual violence, alleged justice failures. Well, that does it for this edition of Press Review for Liberia's capital, Monrovia. Thanks for listening.
Many thanks, Abraham Parker, for the Press Review.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In our guest interview this afternoon, we turn attention to Ghana's judiciary, where President John Dramani Mahama has sworn in Justice Paul Bafuboni as the new Chief Justice. At a swearing ceremony, Justice Paul Bafuboni pledged to uphold the rule of law, ensure accountability, and lead a judicial system where justice is not delayed nor denied. His appointment comes at a crucial moment for Ghana's democracy, where renewed public debate on judicial independence, with the ECOWAS Court of Justice expected to soon rule on a case involving former Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo. That ruling could have significant political and institutional implications for Ghana. To help us understand what this new leadership means for the public confidence in the judiciary and the broader outlook for the rule of law in Ghana, we are joined by private legal practitioner Martin Pebu.
The removal of the Chief Justice is a very good and positive aspect of the reset agenda. You can see that the facts show that the Chief Justice, used the public purse to purchase a ticket and travel out with her family in a manner that is not sanctioned. But I must add that along the line, there was only one small hitch. But overall, it doesn't spoil the process. That is to say, at a point, the preliminary stages, they were supposed to give the Chief Justice a written explanation of the basis for the case to move forward.
With the appointment of Paul Bafuboni, does that repose some confidence, or what do you see as the state of the country's judiciary and the growth of democracy?
Yeah, I think the appointment of Bafuboni is going to help shore up the confidence in the judiciary because, as I said, considering the things that Justice Torkornoo did, the image of the judiciary had sunk further. Already, it wasn't good. If you look at the Mo Ibrahim Index, we've been plummeting and plummeting. It's terribly bad. And then the allegations against Justice Torkornoo made them the confidence in the judiciary worse. So now that she's been successfully removed, that in itself helps to repose some confidence in our democracy because it tells you that our system is robust enough to at least catch some big people who are misusing the public purse. And so the appointment of Justice Bafuboni, first of all, gives that the optics are good because it tells you that the judiciary is under new management. That by itself brings up the confidence. Justice Bafuboni knows that, yes, though he has just 1 year, next year, December, he'll be out of office. He knows that he has to do a lot so that he can also live.
Is it because of his age? 69,
yes,
right?
Yes. Yeah, so he'll be 69 in December. And so next year, December, he'll be 70. And so he'll leave office next December.
Again, when President John Dramani Mahama, during his swearing in, said that in the spirit of check and balances, I pledge to ensure the total independence of the judiciary. How weighty is this statement from the president, and how is that a confident booster for the ordinary Ghanaian that, look, seeking justice at the court will be faster, and other delays that obviously makes going to court a disincentive would all be a thing of the past?
Okay, yes, that statement as a political statement is weighty, especially in the context that he has subsequently walked a bit of the talk, a bit of the promise that the judiciary will work better, etc. in his administration. The president knows that Ghanaians are now more savvy, more citizens are now more engaged and watching the space keenly.
So, Counsel, the case involving the removal of the former Chief Justice Gertrude Iraba-Isaba Tokonum is in court, the Supreme Court, plus also the ECOWAS Court of Justice on the grounds of abuse of a fundamental human right, and they are yet to actually make a ruling on it. And now we have a new Chief Justice. What do you think would be the state of affairs going forward if the ruling comes in favor of her?
There's a vacancy, so we need a substantive Chief Justice to move things forward. If Chief Justice Tokonum wins in court, yes, so then, and they say she should come and continue in office, what it simply means is that then Bafuboni should leave office, and that's not a problem. If the court so rule, yes, it will be implemented.
Is that so?
Yes. So we are just answering pure law. We are not talking about can it happen in this case. As to whether it will happen in this case, I don't want to go ahead of the courts. No.
Martin Kpebu is a private legal practitioner in Ghana. And in the world of sports, Sankole Janko joins me with the latest. Sankole?
Yes, thank you very much, Christopher. Let's go straight to business because Nigeria's football coach has accused the Democratic Republic of Congo of practicing voodoo after his squad hopes of qualifying for the 2026 World Cup ended in a penalty shootout loss. They had Congo and Nigeria. Nigeria drew 1-1 after extra time in Africa playoffs final in Rabat on Sunday. And the Central African Republic, country won, 4-3 on penalties to book the place in the Confederation Cup in the playoff in Mexico in next March. In his post-match, my journalist coach Eric Shell said the member of DR Congo team did some voodoo every time. Interesting there. That's his excuse for losing. Well, former world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua will fight YouTube star Jack Paul in a professional bout in United States next month. Matron Boxing announced on Monday the fight between YouTube and the boxer Joshua, the 36-year-old former two-time unified world champion, will take place at the Kesha Center in Florida on December 19. And finally, there's a bit of dispute between Kylian Mbappe and his former club Paris Saint-Germain. They reached the French Labour Court on Monday for a tense hearing in which France captain claimed 263 million euros and the club responded demanding they pay them 440 million euros. That's it for sports.
Well, Sankole, thank you very much for the latest in the world of sports. And with that, we've come to the end of this afternoon's edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Fali Luso and Ismaila Kamara for the technical assistance. Do interact with us on all of our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Ticho. Good afternoon and enjoy the rest of our broadcast.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kaigama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM, Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.